Hey, hi. Excuse me. Welcome to today's Bonsai log. If you've been following the channel, these just kind of started up in the last few days, and it's my attempt to kind of expedite the process on getting videos out to you guys. I've got to keep up with the day-to-day on my trees anyways, so I'm hoping that if I just kind of set up the camera, talk about what I'm up to, that might be a little more helpful than me trying to edit everything after the fact. I will still try to do that, really clean these up, but this way there's at least fresh content coming out. There probably won't be one of these every day, but I will make a concerted effort to set up the camera and kind of work in this space when I can, so that stuff is being shown. But anyways, today I'm going to be working on one of my absolute favorite trees in my collection. I call this my blue Spruce Coven. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but you know, it's a head nod to the Purple Pot Society, who helped me put this composition together when I was first starting. I'm gonna see if I can get a little better in frame here. Now, so I think it was about three springs ago now. I started with just this one tree here. This was a nursery stock spruce that I was playing with just because it was a local species. And I went to a Purple Pot Society workshop. That's a one-and-done bonsai organization. And the day was just kind of devoted to doing forest plantings. So Linda Paul, a local artisan, actually made this really cool slab, and I absolutely love it. And the rest of the girls helped contribute trees to the planting. It was a really fun, exciting day, learned a lot, and made some friends. Got introduced to the Purple Pot Society. It was phenomenal. So I've got a lot of sentimentality tied up in this particular planting, and I've also put a lot of love and hard work into it over the last couple of years. One of today's goals is going to be finally getting all this wire off. I had been kind of coming through and removing section by section when it was starting to bite, but we've officially reached a point where it's got to be dealt with across the board. Otherwise, I'm going to be doing some scissor work, just kind of cleaning things up and doing some needle plucking, overall just assessing the health of the tree here. Now, I am planning to be around, 90 minutes or so. So if you give me just a second, I'm going to see if I can start a timer for that. Okay. Okay, that's helpful. So, today, because I'm working with spruce, I'm going to be using just some concave cutters, or not concave, the angled cutters. What's nice about these, particularly for spruce, is they kind of stay sharp and they can be pretty precise. So when I am coming through, I can just really get up at the base of a shoot and pluck that out. Now, I kind of have a whirl here. I've got 3 kind of equivalent branches coming out. But the one that looks most helpful is going to be this shoot here. It's going to best reach some of the negative space I have that I'm going to need to fill in the next time wire goes on. I'm also keeping an eye out for shoots on the inside of curves and undesirable crotch growth. Inside of the curve. Okay, what's going on here? Turn to 2. Now, I used copper wire on this, so I'm making sure not to try and unwind it, because that is a recipe for damaging my bark. But I've got a little bucket here where I'm going to be collecting today's scrap copper. Just going to adjust my mic a little. Is this better? Gosh, I hope so. And what the heck, double check what things look like on my YouTube side. Automatic chapter, recording day, license. Okay. As long as all of that looks right. Oh. Shoot, I can have some water. Okay. Back to wire cutting. Now I am definitely starting to get some bite all across the board. So it is finally time to get all this wire off. Now on blue spruce is a species that really benefits from allowing the wire to bite into the trunk or into the branch, whatever. It helps to lignify things. If you don't leave your wire on long enough, everything just kind of bounces back to where the tree wants it to be instead of where we want it to be. branch unions can be a little tricky, especially when we're trying not to damage the bark. So I'll typically try to make my way to one. And work it free from one or both ends. I've just found it's a little easier that way. If you kind of go and get the easier sections, by the time you come back to it, it's kind of released some of the tension from that wire, and you can get in there a little better. Well, hey, looks like somebody's joined this stream. Hope you're having a good day. I'm Jamie. And this is... Oh. This one in particular is one of my very first bonsai trees. I'm really proud of this planting. I've been putting a lot of work into it over the last few years. And right now I'm coming through and removing a bunch of old wire that has been allowed to bite on. I'm also going to do some shoot selection, but I've only got about an hour and a half today, so I'm kind of prioritizing that wire. You have, you know, that's a really good question. And thank you for your kind words. So I can tell you, I've been working this particular tree about 5 years. I don't know how old it was before then. All the other ones in this planting, though, are actually wild collected trees. And the elevation they were collected at tends to really stunt their growth. So I can't put a real age on them, but I do know that they've been out of collection somewhere, or they were collected about 5 to 8 years ago. I couldn't tell you what that actually translates to, but I'm real curious. How old does it feel to you? So I'm coming through and I'm trying to make my snips with the wire cutters about every half turn or so. The nice thing about that is it helps to relieve tension elsewhere down the line. But also as you go through, you tend to get these nice little kind of curls of wire that just pop off and are easy to dispose of. Oh, that's fair. Can I ask how new you are? I've only been practicing About 5 years myself. Well, if you have any questions or want to chat along the way, is it LeCoubler? I'm happy to field anything you might be wondering. Oh, that's the wrong tool. Oh, months. That is fair, bud. Well, I hope it's been your experience so far that the bonsai community is pretty welcoming. I know it certainly has been in my experience. We tend to be a little crazy around these parts, people who really enjoy the little trees. But that's okay. You're amongst friends here. Okay, that is the most cat behavior possible, Rosie. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, here, I'm gonna pick you up. This is Rose. She, had her eye removed a couple days ago, about a week ago. So, she's hiding out in here with me, and she just decided to knock over my bucket of copper scraps. Which was so helpful, Rosie. So helpful. How did you know it needed to be knocked over? Okay, let's get you down. There you go, babe. Okay, sorry about the little sidebar there. Yeah, so you probably haven't had to remove any wire yet, have you? Is it safe to assume you're using aluminum wire at this point? Or, you know, I don't even mean at this point, but like, do you mostly do deciduous tropical stuff? Because if so, you probably don't need to worry about copper wire. But it is a little more unforgiving than the aluminum stuff. Which is really nice for conifers, which, you know, really want to fight you, go back to the way they were growing. If you can't get the growth to lignify. Copper. Looks good. Let's put wire back here. Yep. Sorry, try to get my head out of the way so you can pretend to see at least. And then that just leaves this little section. Okay, so can I leave that? come to there. And I'm still just kind of going for the easily accessible loops, but now I've pretty much removed everything except what's in this one spot that has really bit into the trunk. But I am able to reach the ends of the wire, and they just kind of peel away now that all that tension has been relieved. I am being careful not to bite into my trunk at all, damage the bark. But if you're careful with your cutters, you can pry up the loose end of that copper, which will make getting a new cut in there a lot easier, and it should just there we go. Pop up. Okay, so now I'm going to come through and pluck old needles in places where I don't want them. Now with spruce, places where we leave needles are likely to develop buds, or it's at least possible for them to develop buds there. So when we start looking at the structure of our branches, we want the needles on the bottom sides to be plucked. Oops, I should go that way. Needles from the insides of curves. And needles that are growing in the unions of branches. Now, how far we go in these unions kind of depends on the scale of the tree. But in general, I shoot for about a ½ inch to an inch without any needles, so that I'm not getting any buds right up in that crotch that are going to throw things out of proportion. You'll also start uncovering some weak anterior shoots. Let's go ahead and get those out. Right here. And I am just kind of pinching and pulling these needles out of the way. Okay. So I'm removing growth growing out of the bottom of my branches. And I'm pruning for bifurcation in spots where I have more than 2 shoots extending. Removing dead growth. Okay. And then when I get over here, looking at kind of the structure of this, I want my side branches to kind of alternate what side they're coming out of. So when I look at this, I have this little side branch, which is definitely weak and failing. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the side shoots off of this. Give that little shoot a fighting chance. And look at the structure of the others. Got some crotch growth here. Got this coming from my left, right. Interior growth, left, right, forward. Okay, so I'd say that looks good. I'm following the same logic over this way, making sure that I'm plucking needles at the little junctions of my shoots so that I'm not going to get any crotch growth in the future. And by plucking needles on the bottom sides of branches, I start to make sure that we're not going to get any buds down there where we don't want them. Looks good. Okay, pluck from the underside. Beautiful. Or from the underside. And drink some water. Okay. Just a bit of water there. Okay. I know nobody's here, but I am going to take just a quick pause. I'll be back momentarily. Just hang tight. Mic check. Okay. Oh Lord. Okay. Sorry, it's a bit cramped in the studio. Moving around all the lights is a struggle. Okay. It's not being re-edited. Okay, that's good alternation. Sweet interior growth. That's straight up. Okay. And then inside up curve. That has a good fork. I'm just plucking needles from this union. That's a good fork. What's going on down here? Okay. That's some weak interior growth. Ooh, all of this might just be weak interior growth. I really gotta thin out through here. That out of there, that'll open that up. But then we have that shoot on the inside of the curve. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move on to this tree in the back now. I'm just gonna rotate a bit. You'll see this all right. Looks like it. Going back to the wire cutters. Oh hey, looks like somebody has joined the chat. Hope you're doing all right today. I'm just coming through and removing old wire, plucking some needles, doing some light sheet selection today. Like right here. I've got kind of two branches merging in the same spot. I'm just gonna go ahead, take out the weaker shoot. Same with any shoots growing off the bottom of my branches. No reason to even let the tree waste resources on that. Weak interior growth. Good fork. Weak interior growth. Turn to 2. Turn to 2. And some crouch growth. Okay. This branch done. I'm gonna come through and pluck old needles. Needles from the bottom of my branches. And any old damaged needles. Now, there was one day where this got drier than I would have liked, but thankfully only one tree is showing any signs of damage. So overall, I think it could have been a lot worse. One to 2. And then where I've got my 1-year needles, I'm going to mostly leave those, but making sure that those crotches are still free of needles so that we're not getting any buds where we don't want them. When I'm grabbing these needles and pulling, I'm really following like the natural orientation they have on the tree. It just kind of makes the whole process a bit easier and helps make sure that we're not going to damage the branch, the bark, while we're coming through and plucking. Oh, this is a bit messy, so I know I'm gonna have to vacuum in here later, but it needs doing. just about done with this branch. By coming through and plucking these old needles, it's just making sure that it's not going to set any buds in these spots. It's one of the nice little quirks about working with spruce. Most conifers follow that rule. They'll only bud in spots where they have needles. So this wisdom doesn't really apply to something like, oh, hey, thank you, Marcus. How are you doing today? Yeah, so as I was saying, by plucking these old needles, it just helps to make sure that the spruce isn't going to set up any advantageous buds or disadvantageous buds in a spot where we don't need to waste resources. Especially in these forest plantings, new growth tends to get really stunted. So we want to make sure that we're not wasting our precious nutrients, say on weak interior growth or shoots growing out of the bottom. And the way we do that is by getting needles out prematurely. Okay, looks like the chat's filling up. Nice to have you here with me today. If you have any questions about spruce while I'm working on this, I'm happy to chat with you. But I'm just working on removing old wire, some needle plucking, and shoot selection. This tree's been worked pretty aggressively the last few years. And I think next year I'm going to replant because I'm starting to run into some issues with the, what do you call it, turfus that I planted this in. That was something I've learned to regret. So I do want to move it into a more traditional mix. But I think after that, it's going to get a year or two off to just kind of recover and think tree thoughts, grow in nicely. We've accomplished a lot in the first few years we've known each other. What kind of spruce? These are Colorado blue spruce. So if I turn it to the front here, this one was actually a nursery stock tree. And, you know, I was working it as one of like my very first trees. And the advice I got was to get it into a forest planting. So the others in here, I believe 3, but I couldn't tell you which 3, are also Colorado blue spruce. And then the other one is an Engelmann spruce. But the 4 of those were all like native collected trees. We call that Yamadori, that somebody else had collected, and you know, they kind of let me have for the forest planting. So these are all native to my area, but the real difference in like where you would find them would be a matter of elevation. So the Engelmann spruce, I believe, will grow just a little bit higher outside of the Colorado blue spruce range. But they share lots of very similar growth patterns and quirks that makes telling the two apart a bit difficult sometimes. You know, if I had to guess, I think this one might be the Engelmann, just because there's like a certain quality to its bark that I can't actually put my finger on. that doesn't match all the rest. Otherwise, you know, I don't think I could even make another guess. Man. So, one of the rules that we try to follow is to not have more than 3 pieces of wire in one spot. And I think a big part of that is just the practicality of trying to get through and remove wire when you have like 3 pieces right next to each other without damaging the tree. So right now, I'm just kind of trying to work this spot as gently as I can so I'm not damaging the main branch. And that means I am doing a little bit of uncurling so I can have some space to work the individual pieces and start getting some slack in there. Are you knocking over the copper again? What is wrong with you? What has gotten into you today, sweetheart? Can you just leave the bucket of copper alone, please? The world's sweetest cat is on a warpath over here. Oh, sorry, what's this say? Turpus seems too dry. It's just like Turpus. Oh, you know, so that's a good question. This turfus is actually pretty wet. That's partially because of how this planting is done. But why don't I like turfus? Part of that is I've been able to like actually see the roots of a bunch of different trees that have been like in their pots the same amount of time. But this one had akadama, that one had turfus. And by far, the ones with turfus in their roots had the worst root growth. Whereas kind of like the decomposition process of akadama, I know lots of people dislike that, but that's a feature, not a quirk, you know? Not a bug. Oh, okay. That's a feature, not a bug. So, like, as that akadama actually begins to break down, it causes the roots themselves to start bifurcating. And the way trees go, there's a certain level of symmetry between their trees and their branching. So as you get better bifurcation in the roots, you start to get better bifurcation in the branching. And it's weird, you wouldn't expect the soil to affect the way your branches and your foliage is going to grow in, but it absolutely does. Something else that turfus has kind of working against it is that it doesn't hold on to nutrients very well. It has poor cation exchange, which just means that whenever we're adding like a liquid fertilizer, or even just kind of watering down something like biogold, it's not able to latch on to the different molecules that make up the soil. It just kind of runs through, and whatever the roots are able to snag onto or get soaked up by the moss is really the only nutrients that stick around. But then akadama and, you know, most other substrates do actually latch onto those nutrients as they're being passed through, which allows for better growth. That being said, akadama is expensive, and I'm not gonna deny that. I try to be very frugal with the stuff, but that means, I use a lot of inorganics when I can. Good question. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I'm happy to chat with you. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep plugging away here. Hey, are you okay, sweetheart? It's crazy that this branch is thickened up so much. So, there we go. Sorry, so now I'm going back to doing my half-turn snips with the wire cutters, which lets little coils of the wire just start falling away and starts allowing for some slack in the more congested spots closer to the trunk. There we go. That was a tough one to unwire. Got it. I think. There we go. Got that. Okay. Shoot from the bottom of my branch. Remove some crotch growth. From the bottom of the branch. And pluck needles at my branch unions. And from the undersides of my old growth. So on this year's growth, I'm mostly leaving the needles unplugged, but on the 1 year growth, it helps to start going ahead and being really thoughtful about where we're leaving those needles. Oh, what area in this state do you live in? I do mix Akadama with Turkish to cut my expense, but I don't like to think about how much I spend on soil. What else do you put in your mix? That's such a great question, Marcus. So I'm up outside Lakewood. So apologies, I'm having a hard time placing the face, but I'm pretty sure I have an idea who you are. Definitely say hi next time we run into each other. But yeah, I'm on kind of like the north side of Lakewood, Colorado. As far as what I typically use, you know, I want to distinguish between like my quality trees and the stuff I've just sort of been experimenting around with. Because a lot of my, I guess, less nice stuff, I do use cheaper soil mixes with, and that's been a big part of my experimenting. But I can say that having been playing with things for a couple of years now, I think personally, I want to stick with just 3 ingredients moving forward, and that's pumice, lava rock, and akadama. Those 3 things, yes, they're traditional, yes, they're more expensive, but I do think that they've been used a long time for a reason. And it really makes for better quality trees when we do that. Pumice, I think, especially in Colorado, should be like your #1 substrate component. Obviously, don't do that with your deciduous. Gotcha. Oh, what area in the States? Apologies. I thought you said in this state, and I took that to mean you were just somebody who knew me from the local Bonsai Society, the Rocky Mountain Bonsai Society. But that's awesome. I live in Ohio. That's awesome, Marcus. You know, I'll actually be moving out that way later in the year, not Ohio, but to Michigan, and I will just be a couple hours from Ohio. So I hope that next year, when I start to get out, you know, outside of the Colorado region, to run into it at some function or event. I'm really looking forward to seeing how other parts of the country are tackling bonsai. Because we definitely have some quirks here in Colorado. Yeah. Yeah, so one thing you'll see a lot on our trees is instead of muck, we use like a moss wall technique. And that's just because we're so close to the sun, we have so much elevation, the sun's more intense. You know, we kind of need all the help we can get with our moss. It almost acts like a protective shell for the bonsai so that you're not having to water multiple times a day. I mean, you still have to water multiple times a day, but like, it's a need, trust me. The sun is so brutal here. Yeah. So, can I ask how long you've been practicing, Marcus? I'm gonna call that some crotch grip that's got to be dealt with. Okay, get that out of there. Go back to my needle plucking. Now, I won't have time for it today. But at some point in the next week or so, I'll set up a shop vac and actually soji this planting. Been in bonsai seriously about 4 or 5 years. That's awesome, Marcus. Yeah, I've been practicing about that long as well. All right, some weak interior growth. wire cutters. Yeah, so I've been practicing since 2021. I had like just started dabbling. I think like a couple days before Christmas 2020. And a couple months after that, I really had the bug. And then I actually ended up getting hurt and had a couple months of physical therapy I had to do. And it was like the only thing I was doing other than like physical therapy and recovery was bonsai. Like it just kind of awoke this piece in me that I had never known before. And they ended up telling me that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing, that it would be too hard on me. I've got all these weight restrictions now, but I had just read Michael Hagedorn's book, Post-Dated, and I was like, I can totally do this. I'll just figure out a way to start working with somebody, anybody in bonsai and make it a career. Like I'm just gonna go all in, pursue tranquility, and see how far I can take this. And I think kind of losing the safety net of my old job was necessary for me to go as far as I have, because it was just a perfect storm, timing-wise. Because I had no clue who I was asking. I just knew there was this guy who lived a couple blocks from me that does classes, and I ended up meeting him at my club's holiday party in 2021, 2022? Doesn't matter. And we started talking, and it was just kind of like a perfect timing thing because he was starting to look for help managing his collection, especially with his travel schedule. And that was my end, like I've just been very fortunate in the time since to be able to really just kind of give my heart and soul to bonsai. And, that's actually kind of how this channel came about, was talking with my teacher and trying to figure out some other ways to support myself during my training. And he's like, oh, just do the millennial thing. Set up a camera and like do YouTube. And that is so much easier said than done. Oh my gosh. This channel is officially a year old. And I think I have invested just as much time, effort, and money into, quality equipment and learning to do video editing of all things. But I'm glad he pushed me too, because I don't know. Like, I think having the chance to share my love of trees with the internet is such a great opportunity. I think more of us kind of had exposure to bonsai, it would help kind of reconnect us with nature. And I think in a time of rapid global change, climate change, we kind of owe it to ourselves and the community to do what we can to spark that love of trees. And just the layperson. Like, we need bonsai appreciators just as much as we need bonsai professionals. And I think there's something about this art form that would really help connect a message of climate change if enough people put our brains to it. I'm still just coming through, plucking needles off the underside of my branches and from the unions of side branches. By plucking these needles, it's just going to prevent any buds from setting up in those spots so that we're not getting any crotch growth or buds in places where we don't want them. Now it is probably time for everything to be rewired, but because I'm planning to do a repot next spring, I think I'm going to hold off on that and just let things sort of recover, have a few months with no wire on them, so that we're preserving as much vigor as we can going into next year. If everything is still looking good next summer, we'll probably get wired then. But when I'm done with this, the Spruce Coven is going to be getting the rest of the year off. It's earned it. We've been through a lot the last few years. Do you know where Alamosa, Colorado is, and do you have any pinyon pines in your collection? Off the top of my head, I couldn't say where exactly Alamosa is. I definitely know I've driven past it at some point, but I'm not from here well enough to really remember more than how to get around town. I do have pinyon pine though, just a couple. But I think pinyon and lodgepole are pretty common around here. You know, right after ponderosa, which I think is going to be like sort of the pine of the Rocky Mountain region. But yeah, those are outside. I'm fortunate that I've been able to work a lot with collected trees. But I personally haven't collected a lot of pines. I really like my elongating conifers. And so that's just kind of what I have targeted when I go out and about. Why do you ask? Do you have some questions about pinyon pine? I'm happy to chat with you. Oop. Oh, okay, still the same question. Just making sure. Trying to keep an eye on the chat. Alamosa County. Why can't I place that? I know, Alamosa. No, I'm sorry, I really can't place it right now. Sorry about that, Marcus. do some shoot selection, got some crotch growth there. No reason to keep that pad. Crotch growth. From the bottom of the branch. I have a bunch growing on my land on the sagebrush and some kind of juniper. Only been to my... Yeah, so, yeah, those are actually pretty great to play with. You know, without seeing the juniper, I don't want to speculate what kind it is, because we do have a few that grow around the state. But, you know, I'd say if you, well, you're not out this way. If you did come out this way, there is a big community of folks who like working with collected material. I'm sure they'd love to try and help you out. Assuming you don't know how to collect. I shouldn't make assumptions like that. But yeah, personally, sage is one I wish got a little more love than it gets. I actually recently collected my first sage, maybe about a month ago, and I'm really excited about it. They did drop some foliage, but it is also packing on some new growth, so I'm not particularly worried. Certainly smells delightful though. But yeah, pinyon pine is definitely a good one to work with. Okay, everything's alternating. Those needles look plucked. Miss some wire at the top. Now, Marcus, do you get to work with collected material out in Ohio? Is there anything particularly fun to go looking out for? Bunch growing, okay. So it looks like some new people are jumping into the stream. Hi, nice to have you here. I'm Jamie, and this is my Spruce Coven. The name's a little tongue-in-cheek because the Purple Pot Society, a women in bonsai group, has really helped me with this one a lot, and I just, you know, kind of wanted to pay them some respect in how I refer to the composition. But yeah, just hanging out here, and sage are hard to keep alive. I would like to go out there. It's all a good time to collect in Colorado. You know, it certainly can be. I think with fall collecting, what I would really be mindful about is you're gonna need heat beds. Like, you absolutely can, but I wouldn't want to take a freshly collected tree and just let it go through the winter. I would feel much more comfortable with a garage and some heat mats, something to help keep those roots nice and protected. That's what I have seen kind of be necessary for success with fall collection. With that being said, I've gone collecting like as late as like Thanksgiving. But that was because I had access to a greenhouse with heat mats to help keep everything nice and protected. I really wouldn't have made that risk if that was not an option for me. In general, we really like springtime around here, and depending on elevation, you can actually go quite a bit into summer because the elevation kind of like delays the timeline that everything happens on, like seasonality wise, up in the mountains. So, you know, you might head up to the snow line right now and it's kind of just now springtime up there. Okay, maybe not just now. A couple weeks ago, maybe. Some of those roads are just now passable, which I know because I was out 3 weeks ago, couldn't pass up a little mountain road. But it is open and accessible now. Okay, good forks, good forks, good forks. Put needles at my junctions. Are sage hard to keep alive? Sorry, I thought you were saying they are hard to keep alive. I wish I could say, because I think at least in my particular area, like I'm just sort of outside of where they actually grow. So I do know people with sage, but I do think there's a little higher failure rate than with conifers or the native conifers. But for mine, I've just kind of been letting it go, maybe a day or two between waterings. I'm keeping it under the bench outside of the sun, but really waiting until it starts to dry out before I water it again. I think with Yamadori, that's like one of the most vital things to get right is like the water schedule. Because you can recalibrate light balance, but if things aren't drying out, then it's not going to put on new roots. And when it doesn't put on new roots, it's just going to sit there in stagnant soil, stagnant anaerobic soil, and start to wither away. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little time check here. I know I said at the start that I only had about an hour and a half today to sit down with y'all. And I just want to be mindful because I do have to start getting ready for a beginner class later. And yeah, that's really wound in there. No, okay, that's not a new chat. Just checking. Now, one thing I do appreciate about Spruce is it's pretty easy to kind of unwind more fine wire. Like you can typically just sort of move your branch out of the wire, which makes getting it off pretty quick as long as the bite's not too bad. I wouldn't do this with anything thicker than like a 16, But for the detail wire, it's pretty nice. It was fun chatting, Marcus. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope to catch you on a future stream. You have a good one, bud. Tell your trees I said hi. Yeah. So once I finish this section of wire, I'm just gonna go check the time real quick, make sure we're still doing okay. Okay, so I've still got about a half hour. Oh. Okay. This one has popped up all sorts of weak interior growth. So I'm just going to start coming through, removing everything growing off the bottom and growing in the crotches. Do want to show you guys though that I have been trying to keep up. Let's see, can you even see how tiny the shoot is? I mean, these are some truly tiny needles. And that's because I've been kind of coming through and staying on top of pruning this twice a growing season. Sorry, not twice a growing season, every other growing season. Something about that timeline with coming through and doing shoot reduction helps to encourage new foliage to be smaller. Can't say I understand the mechanics of it myself, but I can't argue with the results either. It's just too long. I'm gonna take that out. Some crotch growth. Print 2. Crotch growth. Coming from the bottom. Okay. Now, one of the nice things about forest plantings is, you know, everything's kind of at a different age, sort of organically, which means that you get lots of like little variations from tree to tree. So I definitely think that this is probably the youngest tree that I'm working on right now in the whole composition. Don't know how well you guys can see this. But I've been trying to prune it as best as I can for some good bifurcation. I know, I'm just keeping up with the needle plucking. bottoms of my branches from my branch unions. Ooh. Okay, we'll see how that heals up. Okay, weak interior growth. Okay, and I think that one is good. Hey, looks like somebody has joined this train. Hi, welcome. I'm just kind of coming through, removing some wire, doing some needle plucking and shoot selection. I'm just about done. There's just 2 more trees here to get through. But if you have any questions while I'm working, I'm happy to chat with you. So, this particular composition, I've been working for a few years now, and I put in my local club show. I want to say it was the year before last. I've been working it very consistently for the last 3 years. I think this is 4.5 years with this particular tree, but all the rest in the forest I got from some of my local club members. And that club actually is the Purple Pot Society, not the club. In case you haven't heard of the Purple Pot Society, it is a women in bonsais organization. Our mission is kind of to help connect and elevate women in pursuit of the field. And, you know, I was very lucky, fortunate that the first time I went out to one of the Rocky Mountain Bonsai Society meetings was actually a bit of a recruitment night for the Purple Pot Society, and Jennifer Price was there as a special guest that night, offering like feedback on trees. And as a trans woman, I was kind of really nervous going to that meeting, especially not knowing anything about Purple Pot. But they kind of clocked me as soon as I walked in the room and were like, hey, you know, you should know about our organization. Like, we want to help you feel welcome, safe, whatever, in the community here. And, you know, it made such an impact. Like, I think if Jennifer Price and Samantha Holm hadn't just been so friendly and welcoming that first time I went into the larger bonsai community, I went from like kind of just practicing in my apartment, I would not have started to pursue bonsai as a career. Just truly blessed. But then a couple months later, that following spring, the Purple Pot Society had a workshop day where we were just doing forest plantings, and so I took that one spruce, and kind of put this whole composition together with the Purple Pot Society. Okay, and I actually believe I'm right at that hour-and-a-half mark. Let's see how quickly I can finish up with this tree. But it's about time for me to start getting ready for the next part of my day. Hopper. Okay. Crotch growth. Bottom growth. Bottom growth. Front two. Front two. Weak interior growth. Crotch growth. Good alternation. Beautiful. Crotch growth. Crotch growth. And front two. hey, looks like somebody has joined the stream. Now, I do want to warn you, I'm kind of reaching the tail end of what I'm up to today. I have to start getting ready for a beginner class. But I'm happy to chat with you before I go. Right now, I'm just doing some shoot selection, some needling, and getting old wire off the tree. Now, as I'm plucking these needles, I'm making sure to pluck on the underside of my branches and in the unions of my side branches, and this helps to make sure that we're not going to get any buds where we don't want them. And then when I'm doing my shoot selection, I'm really trying to make sure that I'm cultivating good forks, preserving vigor. And that I'm not wasting energy on any buds and spots that aren't going to be beneficial in the long run. It's looking great. Bottom growth. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to actually call it here with this tree. Or once I finish this tree. There's one more in this planting that needs to be done. If I have time on the next couple of days, I'll try to work that into another stream. You know, kind of finish up with this and start on something else. But if I don't have time to sit down with the camera, because the next few days will be pretty busy, I'm just going to go ahead and do it without you guys. Because I do need to stay on top of it. Just about done here. Let's go this last. Little bit. Okay. So, the next couple of days, there may be a stream, where I finish this, but if that's not up by, tomorrow at 4 p.m., I'm just gonna tackle it without you guys. I have my future brother-in-law coming in town for a few days, and we're gonna be pretty busy, so this might just be tackled when I have a moment to get to it instead of doing the stream. But anyways, thanks for hanging out with me today. It was an absolute pleasure chatting with y'all. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, it really helps the channel grow. Y'all have a good one.